In another case where far left politicians believe that criminals are victims, the state of California wants to ban landlords from being able to evict tenants under crime free housing ordinances. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting topic for you today, and it's going over the whole crime free housing ordinance issue. Now, I have covered this topic before, and before it actually was in the state of Florida, but now I'm talking about California. And apparently, there are politicians up there who think that these crime free housing ordinances are, they are not good, okay? That they're discriminatory, that they're picking on specific races of people. And I call garbage on that. Simply put, it doesn't matter what race you are. If you have the criminal history, if you're a criminal, then you could fall under this thing and end up getting evicted, right? Now, just because certain groups of people happen to be committing more crimes, that doesn't mean that this is systemic racism or any of that. That is ridiculous, okay? That is a complete nonsense argument. And what it really does is it tells the people, hey, you know what? We're going to allow these criminals to stay here because we don't want to be accused of racism against them, right? And so then they allow the criminals to continue to terrorize the other people who are living in the apartments and continue to cause problems, selling drugs, gang members, etc. And landlords won't be able to get rid of them. You know how stupid that sounds to me? That sounds completely idiotic, but that's what these politicians are pushing because they we are equity, blah blah blah. You know what? These people they talk a whole bunch of garbage, right? But the second they become a victim of a crime themselves, they're calling the police and they're like, listen, we need to arrest that dude over there. He broke into my house. Well, no, well, listen, we can't arrest him. Why? Well, he might be an oppressed minority, right? Anyway, right now they're pushing for this new law, and we'll see if it's going to get passed, right? But once again, they're doing things that are hurting both landlords and tenants. Landlords, we don't want criminals in our properties, okay? They cause too many problems for the other tenants. Meanwhile, the other tenants are like, yeah, listen, I don't want this guy who is a known thief, a known robber living next to me, or a guy selling drugs who's getting shot at. I don't want to get shot in my own house. But that is the sort of thing that you're going to face when the landlord's hands are tied and they can't get rid of these garbage people, okay? So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you believe that these crime-free housing ordinances are, systemic racism against any specific group, okay? Or do you believe that they are actually a useful tool? That's what I believe, that they are a useful tool that landlords and cities and municipalities can use to remove these bad people from properties, okay? So, anyway, let's get into this article. This article is coming from the Los Angeles Times, and it says mandatory evictions for arrested tenants will be banned under new state law. Yeah, let's get into it. California tenants and their families would no longer face mandatory eviction or exclusion based on their criminal histories or brushes with law enforcement under new legislation introduced Friday. Assembly Bill 1418 takes aim at local policies known as crime-free housing, which can force landlords to evict tenants accused of breaking the law or refuse to rent to those with prior criminal convictions. Now, that is another thing. They're slipping in there. Notice that they said that, oh, well, you know what? Now we're going to make it also illegal for landlords to not rent to somebody because they have criminal convictions. So imagine you've got somebody in, this guy, convicted child, okay, just got out of prison. Well, do you want to rent to that person? I certainly do not, okay? And there is a lot of stuff that people can get convicted of that I don't want them in my properties because they are a liability to me, right? And so I believe that these laws work. I always have. So, you know what? I have no sympathy for these people. If you don't want to face the consequences of your actions, don't commit the crime in the first place. That's what I say, you know? And otherwise, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of good actions to basically prove to other people that you are now a responsible member of society. I'm not saying that you can't change. What I am saying is that don't expect me to rent to you 1 year out of prison for your, ridiculous conviction. Okay, don't expect me to rent to you when I know you're a known gang member. You're constantly getting arrested for selling drugs, and I know that the police have raided your apartment before in my building. I don't want that. I don't want you in there, and you should be evicted. Okay, you should be evicted immediately. The rules make it harder for renters, especially Black and Latino tenants, to find and remain in affordable housing, said Assembly member Tina McKinner, the bill's author. It's systemic racism, McKinner said. It's a way to exclude brown and black people from living in their apartment buildings, living in their communities. Well, this person's an idiot, okay? First of all, you're making the assumption that all black and brown people are in prison so much. We're all criminals, and so therefore we can't live anywhere. That's idiotic, okay? Idiotic. And just, you know what? I'm sick of that stupid argument. I am so sick of it because it paints all of us with a negative light, okay? Instead of saying, oh, well, all black and brown people are criminals and they're all up in prison and they're always committing crimes. Well, you know what? Why don't you argue and say, hey, a lot of us, the grand majority of us, are not criminals, and we don't want to have to deal with the criminals. Don't you think that's a good thing? Who do you think the victims are in most on crimes? If it's black people are victimized by other black people. That is what frustrates me the most whenever you're saying, oh, well, we need to do all this for these. No, I don't want to be victimized by other black people. And I'm sure that I don't want to be victimized by anybody, honestly. So why are you up here supporting the criminals rather than supporting the non-criminals, the hardworking people who don't want to have to deal with it? Because you're a garbage politician. That's why. McKinner drew inspiration for the bill from a 2020 Times investigation, which found the crime-free housing policies have disproportionately affected Black and Latino residents in California. The Times determined that at least 147 cities and counties in California have enacted a crime-free housing law or advertised crime-free housing training for landlords, more than a quarter of all the local governments in the state, and that they were especially prevalent in communities with growing Black and Latino populations. You know what? So you want to promote your state as not being a crime-free place? Go ahead, right? Here is the truth of the matter. You push these stupid policies, right? You're the one who says, hey, we're going to go soft on these criminals. You know what happens to the good, hardworking people? They become disillusioned. They become disillusioned with your state. That's why the state of California has a declining population. That's why people are moving out for the first time in a long time, and they're going to other states, places like Arizona, which are much more conservative, places like Nevada, places like Texas. They're getting the heck out of there because you know what? They can't deal with the problems. You know what? Crime is a real problem, not like all the other garbage. You're talking about systemic racism. Well, you know what? Systemic racism is a made up problem, and a real problem is crime. And people don't want to deal with it. And that's why they're leaving the state of California. So, hey, go ahead, pass those laws. You know what? When you see your population continue to decline because you're passing too many laws, too many rules, too many regulations that make it impossible, not just for landlords to operate our businesses, but also for the tenants to live safe and productive lives. And then they're just like, you know what, we got to go somewhere else. We got to get the heck out of here. And that's exactly what they're going to do.